shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. Well, I just picked up today's project. It's going to be a little bit unusual because it's kind of a budget repair type project on a set of 6 Sophisticate chairs by Tomlinson. They date probably from the 50s. They're mid-century modern Hollywood Regency kind of cross. They're beautiful chairs. They're in pretty rough shape, and I've been asked to see what I can do on these for not too much money. And I'll bring you in and show you all the things that are wrong with it, or that I see so far. And there's an awful lot of things wrong with these chairs. And then we'll do the best we can to help our friend out with these. They come with cushions. She has those. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what kind of shape they're in. I don't know anything about them, so I'm just going to go ahead and do what I can on the wood part of the chairs, and we'll move on from there. So you may have noticed I'm not dressed like a complete pig today. I just got back from picking these up, and I haven't changed into my rags yet, so feast your eyes. I'll be filthy in just a minute, I promise. I'll bring you in and let's take a look at what we got ourselves into. All 4 of these chairs are suffering from a huge amount of finish loss right under where the cushion would be. I don't know what may have happened, if the cushions were put down with adhesive and it ate through the finish or what, but you can see here out as far as this, the finish is starting to rot, and all through here it's gone right down to bare wood. And same thing if you take a look in the back of the chair, you'll see we have the same problem here and the same problem all along here. That problem is in all 4 chairs. All 4 chairs also have minor color loss anywhere the cushions probably rubbed against them, and we'll touch that up. The chairs are webbed, and the webbing is secured with multiple upholstery tacks. This job is going to be done with the webbing in place. To do this job thoroughly and completely would involve removing the webbing. I don't know if this webbing is original. I don't want to replace it, so we're going to work around the webbing. We'll do the best we can with the constraints that we're under. Let's move on to the next chair. All right, and we're looking at the curve of the back rest of this chair. And if you see this line here and this line here, that's a fracture that's going to need to be repaired. It's broken. It appears to be cleaned through. There's also underneath here, you can see it, some significant color loss, and it looks like it might have been a prior repair. I'm suspicious there may be a piece of hardware in there or something that's broken or failed. I just don't know what to expect, but we've got to glue this back together. And there is another chair that has the same brake that's already been repaired, and it's been misaligned, but unfortunately I'm just going to leave that as it is under the constraints that we're under. So we'll repair this brake and the color loss to these 2 chairs. Let's take a look at the other 2. And this chair is also suffering from the same loss of finish and color along the edge, and this is the brake that was repaired. It's been glued. Somebody used some red filler in here to try to conceal it. It is what it is. And then this chair here also has the same issues. And coming back to the one single arm, or one of the armchairs, we see that all of the color has been taken off this leg, and it is badly stained on the bottom. I don't know if that's a burn mark or water or what, but we'll hit that with some sandpaper and see if we can assess what it is, and maybe some oxalic. But this leg has to be recolored and color matched. So the first thing, and you can see we've got finish loss on the outside of the chairs all over. So each of these chairs is in pretty rough shape and needs a lot of work. So we'll do the best we can for this person. So here we go. We're on chair number 1, and you can see I've used blue tape over the existing webbing, so we don't have to worry about that. I've been playing around with this brake and dry clamping it. I've found that if I clamp, just as you see here, right across this direction, it'll pull this completely back in line. We're very, very fortunate for that because this is a compound curve, and if we weren't able to do that, we were going to have to come up with a pretty elaborate clamping scheme to get the proper pressure on here. But it's pulled very, very tight, so I'm comfortable that we can re-glue this. You know, again, we're going to get the glue in here, and I'll show you how I do it, and then re-glue it, and then we'll get the strength back in this back here, and then we can touch up this damage. Let's work some glue into this crack. I'm using just regular carpenter's glue here. Tight Bond 2 if anybody cares. It's a PVA glue. And going back to the dental floss trick that we learned from our subscriber, see if we can get some dental floss up in there. This break is pretty ragged down at this bottom end. There we go. And the other subscriber tip, which we've had some success with, thank you, is using compressed air to blow some of that glue down, right down inside that crack. Sorry, the chair is moving. It's moving on me too. And this is just a damp rag. Works great for PVA glue. If it was epoxy, you'd need a little bit of acetone on it. Okay, here's our break right in here. Trying to open this up the best I can from behind. Use that air to help force that glue down in the crack. Okay, I think between the two techniques from the two sides, we've got that joint fairly well full. Let's get it clamped up. It's a great feeling when you get that much glue squeezed out front and back. You throw those clamps on there, you know that joint's full of glue. Alright, I'm happy with that one. This is not our brake is over here. We've got one more to do. Let's get her up on the table. And we're looking at the back of the chair that I have marked number 3. And if you can follow this line here, that crack has already been repaired by somebody else. You can see the little beads of glue that are still there. What we're going to be focusing our attention on is this. You can see that move right there. This piece here is cracked up in here. Now it's mostly loose at the bottom. It appears to be tight at the top. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge to get the adhesive in there, but I think we'll be fine. And you can see actually now with me wiggling it, we are loosening up here. There we go. Alright, we're going to use the same techniques on that. Can you see the repair? I can't either. That's not ours. That's ours. And that's the difference between Lost Mountain and other places. Okay, I'm on chair number 2. And I took a straight, I have a whole box of these. I took a straight razor and I've been using them more and more like cabinet scrapers for small jobs like this. But basically what I did is using it like a cabinet scraper, I just ran it across this damaged area to get any of the loose finish up and also help taper the old finish into the area that has no finish in it whatsoever. And I became suspicious of the finish. This piece is from the 1950s and the finish should be lacquer. But when I put some denatured alcohol on it, and I rub, the finish starts to melt. And you can, hopefully you can see, that's the finish coming up. And I've already gone through it with alcohol. And we know what that means, shellac. I don't know why there's shellac on this, whether it was refinished and they did it in shellac, whether the manufacturer did it in shellac, I have no idea. But this, at least on this part of this chair, is shellac. I'll probably test another area just to see, but we know what we're working with now. It's a shellac finish, and that explains why this all happened. Something must have got under here, whether it was off-gassing or somebody spilled something, but whatever it was, wasn't compatible with the shellac and took the finish right off. It may have even been a glue of some kind, an alcohol-based glue. But anyways, that's what we're going to be doing next, is scraping this finish down to get it nice and smooth. Okay, using the razor blade, I was able to get all the rotten finish off and smooth the transition between the finish and the bare wood. As you know, finish has a thickness to it, and when it gets melted away, particularly chemically, it leaves a ridge of a couple of, thousandths of an inch, couple of mils, that can be a real nightmare to deal with when you're trying to make a patch, a finish patch. But in this case, I was able to scrape it pretty well smooth. So the next step is to get all the rest of the chairs to this spot here, and then we're going to seal this bare wood, and we'll make a decision how we're going to color it and how we're going to top coat it. Right now I'm thinking we'll go with a satin lacquer top coat so we don't have the same problem when that seat gets reattached. But that's certainly up to subject to change if things develop differently. But you can see that technique did a really good job of getting rid of that rotten finish and smoothing things out. So we'll do it to all 4 chairs, and I will bring you back. And I did some fooling around with chair number 2 to try to figure out the best way to reproduce this color. And what I found is to seal it and then apply pigment, frankly, with my finger, and then shoot lacquer over it and build it up from there. The colors that I'm using are perfect brown, raw umber, and light golden oak. I'm real happy with the way that came out. It wasn't an easy match. There was nothing that I had in solution that was anywhere close. Light golden oak was too red, and I had to kind of put the pigments on manually. So let's take a look at chair number 4. It's getting late in the day. I want to see if I can just get the fuzz stripped off of this. Here's chair number 4, and as you can see, somebody, they must have glued it, and that's what ate the shellac away. We've got to get this fuzz off and then get in here and scrape this flat and recolor it. And you can see there's a big bit of finish missing right here. It's huge. That's going to be a real joy to fix. But let's see if we can get this up with some mineral spirits. And I've applied some mineral spirits here, and I'm rubbing. Yeah, I should have a glove on, but I don't. And what we have is shellac and fuzz together. So it's going to have to come off with a shellac solvent, which is going to strip the finish and the color right off of every place it's at. Oh man, let's try one more thing. Well, that technique will save the color, that's for sure. Alright, I'm going to scrape this all up. I'll bring you back. Okay, I hope you can see what I'm doing here. Using the scraper, I scraped off all of the fuzz and as much of the rotten finish next to it that I could. And I haven't quite finished over here yet, if you can see that there's this. Now, I'm trying to be careful and remove as little color as I can. But unfortunately, there's places it's right through the color. Now, this right here is the seam, or not the seam. This is where the damage stopped, and the finish kind of melted up. So what I'm doing is, with some sandpaper and my finger, I'm just running along that ridge to smooth that down so it'll blend in. And again, I'm trying to keep the color where it is because it was a bit of a pain in the neck to get that color to match. So let's see if we can zoom in on this corner here. And you see this white, that's where the finish is up a little bit. This is the seam where the damage stopped. And basically whatever adhesive someone put down melted this finish, and that's what fused it to the chair. And this finish is still soft and it's still coming up, so I'm going to scrape this off. I'm feeling it catching still, so I'm going to keep going. And unfortunately, I'm starting to run through the color, but there's nothing I can do about that. I need to get back to good finish, and I need to taper this. We're starting to make some progress here. Trying to get rid of that white. This chair should have been stripped and refinished. These types of patching jobs are extremely time consuming and can be very frustrating. Alright, it's starting to look a little bit better. At least doesn't have fuzz stuck to the front of it. There we go. This part here is ready for color touch up, and this part here needs a little bit of work. Then of course we've got it going down the sides, that we got to take care of that. So I'm going to get back on this, but that's how we're doing it, with a razor blade and a little bit of sandpaper, trying to preserve as much of this color as we can. Whatever we can't, we're going to fill in with pigment, and I'll show you how we do that. We've got this pretty well ready for color. Now you can see we're right down to bare wood here. This was a pretty thick finish, so I tapered it down the best I could. This is never going to be 100% smooth. We'll make it as nice as we can within the constraints that we're dealing with. Okay, I've got some perfect brown blend all powder. I'm using my bare fingers. It's going to turn brown, but I need to feel it on the wood. And what I'm doing is just rubbing this pigment into the lighter color. We're going to start building color that way. And this is just some lacquer, and you can see already we've got it blended in really well. And let's do this part here. And this technique, again, I'm just pretty much rubbing this pigment into the wood as I feel it needs it, and then sealing it in with a coat of lacquer. And then we'll come back and repeat as necessary. You can see how that's darkening that up. That one's not there yet, but it's a whole lot better. All right, let me get to it and I'll bring you back. Okay, after we put the color on, just as I showed you all over the chair, that's what we have. This is the chair that was covered in that fuzz that had melted into the shellac. So I think we made it better. We've got 2 more chairs to do, but it's dinner time, so we'll do these tomorrow. So far, so good. It could have been a disaster, but we figured it out. Bring you back tomorrow, we'll finish these up. Well, I decided to come back out tonight before it got too late and try to knock off the color work on the rest of these chairs, and that's what I'm doing now. I neglected to show you, when I have parts of these chairs that are bare wood, the first coat that goes down is some sanding sealer, of course. This is the same stuff that I shoot out of my gun, just it's in an aerosol can. And it's a little bit, for small jobs, it's a little bit easier. I don't have to deal with a spray gun and setting it up. So let me get to it and we'll get this last chair taken care of. There's the first 2, and there's the third one. So we're making good progress. And we're still doing the color work on the chairs and touching up here and there. But let's get started on this leg. We've got something black on here. It looks like it's coming off. And it's coming off on the paper. It doesn't smell like char, but it looks like char. They may have overheated the legs trying to strip it with a heat gun. But most importantly, it's coming off. So basically what we're going to do is just sand this leg, get it sealed up, and then we'll color match it after we've sanded out the sealer, just like we've done 1,000 times. So I will bring you back. I've sanded this leg as much as I dare without misshaping the taper on it, and we got most of that blackness off. Some of it's just soaked into the wood. I don't think it's anything that oxalic is going to lighten up. I really don't, so I'm not even going to try. But what I'm going to do is put a little bit of white color over this, and then we'll seal this whole leg, and that should tone that down a little bit. This is just a little bit of blend-all powder, this time in antique white, and we're just trying to tone down that blackness a little bit. We'll build the color back up after it's sealed. And just make sure anytime you do this that you blend it in really well. You want to avoid any abrupt lines. And the other thing I found out is this leg is loose as well, so we're going to have to handle that. Now you notice when I'm using this blend off powder, I'm not wearing gloves. You do what you think is right. You should have gloves on. The problem is I don't feel like I can get the powder on the way I want when I don't have my fingers not bare. I know I look like someone who just voted in India, but now you see that white did not completely conceal that, but it's got it toned down a little bit so that when we go over it with the color, it won't be so obvious. If that helps. And it just gives me a little bit of a lighter base to work off of. These legs are through mortised and they have a wedge through them. And this one is loose. Someone had tried to wedge some type of putty in here to tighten it up. That's not the way to fix it. I can't get it out without possibly damaging the top of the seat, which is visible. So what I've done is I've drilled holes here where it's loose down into the joint, and I'm going to fill it up with this Rewax Chair RX, which is a big mess right now. It's a glue designed for chair spindles. And allegedly, this stuff will get down into the joint and become adhesive and also swell the wood. So that's why it's used for this purpose. And you can see the looseness there, and I'm doing that to help work that glue down into that joint. And we did the same repair on the lane of claim tables when we had troubles getting those legs out as well. And it worked. So we're hoping that's going to work here as well. Well, we're at the end of day one. It's been, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 hours probably, if that. Again, it's an unusual situation. Normally these would have just been refinished. A lot of touch-up work. We've still got a lot ahead of us. Try to do some wet sanding to help level off the height difference between the old finish and the new. Try to smooth that out so the light doesn't catch it quite so bad. And the other thing to keep in mind is most of the places where we've made these repairs are going to be covered by the cushion, but we still want to make it look as nice as we can. We got the 2 broken backs repaired, and we've got that loose leg repaired. We've got that leg that was stripped. That's been color matched, and it's got a couple coats of lacquer on it. So we are closing in on this project. Stick with us. I'll bring you back tomorrow. Good morning. Let's take out these clamps and see how we did. This one right here was our repair. That came out exceptionally well. Very, very happy with that. I'll take off the clamps on the other one. We'll have the same result. The next step is to get these finish patches smoothed in, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, I'm going to kind of explain how I'm handling patching this damage in. When you have a small chip or a small piece of damage, you can use what's called a drop fill method, which is basically just dropping a drop of a liquid. They have special stuff they make for it. You can use a drop of CA glue. You can use multiple drops of lacquer, because as lacquer dries, it shrinks. And then you basically just fill the void and sand it flat. But in this case, we had long and very wide areas of missing finish because it was dissolved by whatever adhesive someone put in underneath the cushion that goes on these chairs.
So I've drawn here kind of a blown up diagram of what we were dealing with. And when was the last time you had a lesson on the back of a piece of sandpaper wrapping? But anyways, this line here represents the wood, and then there's a thin line above it of color, and then this thicker line here is your clear coat. And as you know, in our repair, this was all gone, and we're down past the color. So what we did was we added our color, and I did that with my finger and the pigments, and then we started to spray in top coat, and that was spray lacquer. And I probably put 6 or 7 coats on last night. But aerosol lacquer in particularly doesn't have a lot of solids in it, and even if I was spraying it out of my gun, it takes a very long time to build this up. And of course, as you're doing this, you're building additional thickness here, and you're basically just chasing yourself up right up on top of your piece, and it never gets done. So what I do is I put enough top coat to protect my color coat, and then taking a sanding block, I sand, and the only thing that gets hit are the high spots. And the idea then, let me move up here now, is to get your color coat, your top coat. So here's the wood, here's the color, and by sanding this, you're only taking off the high spots, and the idea then is to get your fill as close to level as you can. And when the light hits it, it's going to be these seams here that show. These little dips, if it wasn't for those edges, your eye is going to kind of gloss over. So that's what we're trying to do. Now let me bring you over to one of the pieces I've already taken care of and show you what we've accomplished. Then I'll show you how I did it. And here's one of the pieces that we've repaired, and there was a very large separation between the repairs and the existing finish, which we've got fairly well sanded down. It's not 100% perfect, but it's not catching your eye any longer. And then once we have it close to flat, we just take some lacquer and spray over it, and that helps again get everything leveled up. So that's what we've done, and you can see this was the most heavily damaged seat on this project. And unless you really are scrutinizing it, you're not going to know. And of course, this entire thing gets a cushion that covers all of it, so it's never going to show. So that's how we do it. Let me show you how it gets done. Now this is one of the repairs we did last night, and you can see, I hope, this line here, which delineates the difference between the finish that remains and the finish that was taken off. Of course, we colored this in and laid in as many coats of lacquer as we could get in there last night. So now what we need to do is take a sanding block with some 220 on it. I'm going to sand, and my sanding block is keeping the paper above the repair area and on the high area, and the idea is to try to bring it all down as close to level as we can. And I'll bring you back. And by sanding with my 220 to try to work down the existing finish closer to the level of the patch, I'm dusting this up for you so you can see. You can see just how much that delineation is gone. I'm going to work on this a little bit more, and then I'm going to spray a little bit of lacquer on it, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, that's how it looks after sanding. Put a little lacquer on it and see what it looks like with some finish on it. I think that looks pretty good. Now you remember what we had here. We had thick cloth material that had dissolved into the shellac finish, and when it came up, it took all the finish with it. And what we've done is replace the color with some pigments, and then filled in the voids as high as we could last night with multiple coats of lacquer, probably 6 or 7, and now we've sanded them smooth and shot a mist coat of lacquer over top of it, and that's the repair, and I'm very happy with the way that came out. So let me continue doing this on all the chair seats, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, if you remember what we started out with, it was a total mess. And we've got the finish on these chairs repaired. Not refinished, repaired. I think exceptionally well. And what I'll do during the rest of the day, periodically, is just come in here and light sand and just shoot additional coats of lacquer on these seat bottoms. Just build the finish up, even out any spots that might be off a little bit, and we will get them right back where they need to be. So on these chairs, we fixed 2 broken backs. The majority of what we did was to remove cloth that had melted into a shellac finish, apparently because someone had decided to glue the chair cushions to the shellac with probably an alcohol-based adhesive, and it took off huge portions of the finish. And what we did was remove it, color match it, seal it, build up lacquer coats, and then sand down the existing to or close to the level of the patches so that it looks like one uniform finish. We did not refinish the chairs. We did not take off the existing upholstery. We worked around it. So we probably have a little bit more time into these than normally we would because of that. But I think we're 5 hours, would be my guess, to fix all 4 chairs. So that's not too bad. All right, during the rest of the day I will come back in here and just lather, rinse, and repeat. I'll put some wax on these chairs for the owner, and we'll get these out of here. So listen, from our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia, best regards. Thanks for watching. Take good care. We'll see you next video. And remember, it's just wood, color, and some shiny stuff. Bye.